Struggling with plummeting sales and a market that had moved on, Lego was teetering on the edge of financial ruin in the early 2000s. The market was quickly evolving, and their products were losing relevance. But what happens when a beloved brand faces its darkest hour? And with that, welcome to the Rising Tide Leadership Podcast, where we turn the complexities of leadership into clear, actionable insights. I'm Scott, and joining me is our go-to leadership guru, Dr. Michael David Morales, known as Mo.
Hey, what's up, Scotty? I'm in. I'm ready for the rest of the story. Let's do it.
So everybody has, for the most part, heard of Lego, but in the early 2000s, they actually faced really severe financial trouble. So they struggled against kind of the emergence of digital distractions and high-tech games that were coming out. I mean, if you know anything about the early 2000s, it was all about Nintendo and GoldenEye. And I mean, I have so many memories of playing all those games and not playing with Legos. But when their CEO, whose name I'm going to hopefully pronounce correctly here, Jorgen Vig Knutstorp, became that CEO in 2004, his authentic leadership style made all the difference. So he embraced Lego's core values and refocused on its classical building bricks and streamlining their product line. He introduced this thing called Lego Ideas, which is a platform where fans could suggest and vote on new sets, which is pretty awesome. And that in turn fostered this genuine connection with customers. And then he went on to form strategic partnerships with franchises like Star Wars. If you know anything about Legos and Star Wars, there is just this cult following. Some of the figurines, like even just like the little people, sell for upwards of $130, $150 just for this little Lego person.
Gosh.
But he formed partnership with Star Wars, I know, Harry Potter, and then enhanced or attempted to enhance the brand experience at their Lego stores and their Legoland park in Southern California. And it really led them through just a remarkable turnaround. And his authentic approach revived that company and really transformed them into the global success story that they are today. And so today we're actually diving into that topic that's at the heart of really every great leader's journey, and that's authenticity. So Mo, why is authenticity so crucial in leadership?
Yeah, before we get to that, have you ever been to there's Legoland, right? Where is that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's in Los Angeles. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure.
For some reason, I thought it was like somewhere else in the country.
California.
Okay, yeah, but you've never been.
Every cool park's in California. So let's be real.
I'm gonna say, gosh, well, yeah. I mean, I always hear that. I want to go. That actually makes me want to go even more. And so, yeah. So today we're talking about authenticity, and it's really not just a buzzword. It's a foundation for building trust within any organization, because exceptional leaders are transparent, they act honestly, they stay true to their values. And so today we're going to discuss 3 reasons why authenticity is essential to leadership. And each of these points is going to have a story to bring that concept to life.
100%. So I know our first point is that consistency builds confidence. So let's just dive straight into that. And Mo, what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that first point, consistency cultivates confidence, is really about being the same person in every situation. And most of us have a friend where we've said, man, that person is like a genuine person. They're the same in every facet of life. You know, we all have that colleague at work where they're, cool under pressure, or they're crazy all the time. And then you find somebody that knows that person and you say, is he always like that? Is she always like that? And it's the person where the answer to that is yes. That's an authentic person. That's somebody who's living their values. It's living who they are. And so for leadership, consistency is about being the same person in every leadership situation, because when leaders are consistent, they create a predictable environment, and this helps their team feel secure. And that security fosters confidence in the leader, as people know what to expect, and then they can trust that the leader's not going to change based on the situation. It's a leader that can stay true to his or her value system no matter what.
So I know you are the king of great stories, so I'm guessing that you have a story to go along with this point.
Yeah, I do have a story. And the first one obviously is from one of my favorite books. I don't know if it's in the top 5, but it is definitely in the top 50. And it's Jim Collins' book, which is called Good to Great. And if you are a leader, this book needs to be on your shelf. In fact, it should be in reach so that you can get the good stories like we're going to tell right now. And so Collins talks about a leader named Darwin Smith. And this guy was the CEO of a company called Kimberly-Clark. And so Smith was known for his consistent decision-making process, always grounded in his value. And so during his tenure, Kimberly-Clark boldly decided to sell its paper mills and invest in consumer products, which was a huge deal. It was a significant risk. And however crazy it was, he knew he had to do it. So despite all the pushback, Smith had an unwavering commitment to his strategy that eventually led to extraordinary success. And so how many times do we see that? It's a bold decision that's made, and somebody, usually a leader, somebody who has decision-making power, says, we're going to do this. And everybody else says, oh, don't do that. It's going to be the end of the world. And then all of a sudden, wow, you're a genius, right? So in this case, Smith's consistency paid off because it helped him stay true to his values and his vision, and it cultivated immense confidence in the leadership team and also the shareholders, and really in business, that's what we need to do. We're beholden to our people and our shareholders.
Good to Great is actually one of my son's favorite books. My son, who is only 10 months old, but it's his favorite book to pull off the bookshelf. So it's going to probably be one of the first books I read.
You're
You're
raising him right. I'm telling you, the kid is gravitating towards leadership, man. So be aware. You got a leader in your midst.
100%. It's actually kind of weird. Those are the only books that he actually pulls off the bookshelf are from our leadership section. So
There you go.
I guess it's foreshadowing, right? So
yeah.
What I'm curious about, though, is how did Darwin Smith's consistent leadership style influence how his team responded to challenges and the changes?
Collins calls Darwin Smith a level 5 leader. And so we talk about levels of leadership all the time. And just as John Maxwell, shocking that we've already heard his name and we're only a few minutes in, right? Maxwell has his 5 levels of leadership, but Collins has 5 levels of leadership that he talks about. So we're talking about Collins' 5 levels of leadership, and he calls Darwin a level 5 leader, and there is no level 6. And what Collins says in his book is this: he says, level 5 leaders channel their ego needs away from themselves and into the larger goal of building a great company. It's not that level 5 leaders have no ego or self-interest. Indeed, they're incredibly ambitious, but their ambition is first and foremost for the institution, not for themselves. And so when you think about that, and when our leaders think about that, my question for you as a leader out there is, are you ambitious? Because as a leader, whatever your temperament is, you've got to be ambitious. You have to want what's best for your team. And so you have to be ambitious, or somebody else is going to swoop in and take over. But your ambition should always be to take care of your people. And so how do we take care of our people? A lot of people will ask me, Mo, so what can I do? Well, when you make decisions, are your decisions always putting your people first? And let me give you a great example. The first thing that I do when I get somebody on my team is I think, how can I grow this person so they are bigger than what I'm doing, so that they grab onto another vision, and if they go out, they become a leader on their own. So somewhere down the road, whether it's 1 year, 5 years, 20 years, somebody else is going to say, wow, you know a ton about leadership. What's up? I hope to be a part of their story one day. And they say, yeah, Mo was part of that, and so-and-so was part of that, and so-and-so was part of that. But that's why I build into people. Because while most leaders are afraid of losing people, part of my authentic nature as a leader is I'm putting my people first. And just like Colin says, it's about getting the right people on your team, or as he calls, getting the right people on the bus. If you focus on that and then get your people to do their very best, and even if they outgrow your team, watch, your team is going to continually get better. And those are the kind of authentic leaders that I want in my life.
That's great. Another thing we talk about all the time, getting the right people on the bus, and just how critical that is. So, and I know one of the big things too is that, or I should say that can contribute to that is kind of tied into our second point, and that's transparency. And so our second point is transparency transforms teams. And so, Mo, why don't you kind of bring us back around and then connect really how transparency itself enhances authentic leadership?
Transparency is about being open and honest with your team, even when the truth is uncomfortable. When leaders are transparent, it builds trust and it fosters an environment where their team members can feel safe to share ideas, concerns, feedback, how they're feeling. Do they like what's going on? Do they not like what's going on, et cetera? And so this communication is going to transform your team into a cohesive unit. And that unit or units is going to be able to tackle challenges together. And they're going to be able to do the right things when challenges arise.
It's great. But for maybe those that don't get the, the quick, the kind of nitty gritty down to the strict definition there, is there an example that you have, kind of maybe a real world example that kind of illustrates this point?
Yeah. In Dare to Lead by Brene Brown, and most people in the leadership or business world have heard of her, have not read one or more of her books. I love her stuff. She tells a powerful story about a company called Pixar. Scott, I know you know a lot about Pixar because you don't. I thought Disney
definitely
Pixar.
Never heard of it.
Oh, okay. I was like, Scott's just messing with me now. So like Disney, Pixar, all these places. But remember, Pixar, there was a guy, his name is Ed Catmull, and he's one of the founders of Pixar. Catmull emphasized the importance of transparency in the creative process. And so he instituted what he called brain trust meetings, where the directors would present their films and progress to a group of what he called trusted colleagues. And in these meetings, everyone was encouraged to be completely honest. I'm talking the down and dirty, right? And what was working, what wasn't. And this transparency wasn't about criticizing or anything else except for making the film the best that it could be. Because being transparent and open, Catmull created an environment where creativity flourished, and it was really the number one thing. If creativity wasn't prevailing and if it wasn't the word of the day, throw it out. And the teams ended up being empowered to produce some of the most successful animated films in history, Scott, as you well know.
Yeah, I do actually well know. So that sounds almost ludicrous when you think about it. Like a meeting, like I'm thinking about all the meetings that I've been involved in my workplace and really in various workplaces, and just how daunting that would be to just so bluntly open and just critically honest about things. So really, what would then you suggest for our leaders? Like, I mean, most workplaces obviously probably are not like that, but we know it can be beneficial. So then how do our leaders really start that process of kind of pushing that into their workplace, or kind of trying to bring that, I guess, into their workplace?
Yeah, well, as we know, Catmull was at the very top, right? He was one of the founders. So he is at a spot where a lot of us probably aren't. Most of us are, like you said, Scott, you're at a workplace and you've been a part of a lot of teams, even where you work now and in your other places of employment. All of us have been in these kind of positions. And so let's just say for our leaders out there, you've probably been in charge of at least a team of 1, 2, 3, 5 people in your office. And so if you want that kind of transparency like Catmull, I would say this: lead the way that he did. Go in there and tell people, look, we want the good, the bad, and the ugly. We're not here to scratch each other's backs and make each other feel good. We're here to be honest. But to do that, Scott, you can't just go in and start that. This is about creating a whole culture, because I can say that today, and if somebody listening out there is like, man, I'm going to do that, Mo, I'm going to go tell my people, and then if you go tomorrow and it's not part of your culture and you just all of a sudden just do it, people are they're gonna get hurt. They're gonna be like, oh man, like I'm working on this project and my leader Mo just told everybody to just go crazy on it. You've got to know your team, right? You've got to, within that authenticity, you've got to help the people understand, for instance, hey, we want to be in a culture of growth. We want to be in a culture of transparency. And so let me ask you this, Scott. On a scale of 1 to 10, where do you think maybe your colleagues, even, this is a great question, where do you think that people generally fall on the transparency meter? Like if you're in a meeting, do you feel like people are being transparent, or do you feel like people kind of hold back? I mean, what do you?
That's a great question. Gosh, I would say overall it depends on the individual. I would say there are some people who are overly transparent and some that are not transparent at all. For the most
Sure.
part, though, if I had to give what the average for what I see out of most people, I would say that People are just as transparent as they are comfortable with, which usually isn't a lot of transparency. And I think it just has a lot to do with the fact that they don't want to open up. They don't want to have that. They may not know that person very well, and may not know them well enough to know how they're going to react. So, and I mean, I can think of plenty of times where if I was completely transparent about something, that it would be received poorly. And at the end of the day, it would be my opinion, right? Like, and we know opinions don't matter. But I would say for the most part that people really, they're just not that transparent, especially I would say depending on the workplace itself. Maybe because they just don't feel like they can be.
Yeah. And so that was a hard question. And that's why I presented it to Scott. And so for our leaders, that's the same question. And it doesn't matter what team you're on or what team I'm on. I think that the answer that Scott gave is pretty much the answer that we would all give. Some people are over transparent. Some people are just about as transparent as they need to be. Some people aren't transparent at all. And how do we know that? Because we've all been in meetings, right, where you kind of side eye people, like the boss says something and you kind of side eye, like, oh. And then when does the real meeting take place? The real meeting takes place after the meeting, when everybody goes back to their offices, and then so and so stops by somebody so and so's office, and vice versa. And then the boss, has his or her people that are kind of their yes men or yes women come through. And, oh, how did I do? Oh, boss, you did a great job. And so what I'm saying is you got to get past all that. And I feel like the teams that I've built over the years, and I would say, Scott, we're actually in that relationship. I feel like our team is a pretty transparent team at Rising Tide. I mean, we have conversations all the time. In fact, I'm sending text messages out all the time. I just, sent one to you the other day, and I was like, "What do you think about this?" And you're like, "Oh, that's great, but what if we did it this way or that way?" That's the kind of teams that I want to be on. I don't want people to be afraid to be like, "Oh man, that's a dumb idea." I'm not going to tell Mo it's a dumb idea. I mean, there's nicer ways to tell people that their ideas are dumb, but at least we're working together. So build that transparency on your team, and you leaders out there might need to start with maybe just one person or two people and help them become more transparent. And trust me, the more transparent you are, the more authentic you will become as a leader, and your team's going to thank you for it. So go out, give it a shot. Let me know if it works, or man, maybe I'm.
Also, we apologize in advance for the backlash that you may receive for being transparent, but know that it is a great step
Absolutely.
in your leadership journey. So
thank you, Scott. Yeah.
So one thing that I think about when I hear the word authentic is integrity. I strongly feel that people that are authentic have a high level of integrity. And our final point today is integrity inspires influence. So overall, how does that integrity fully tie into authenticity?
Integrity is the backbone of authenticity. It's doing the right thing, even when it's difficult or when no one's watching, right? Character is what you do when people are watching. Integrity is what you do when nobody's watching. And so leaders who act with integrity inspire their teams, they influence, and that influence ends up extending far beyond their workplace. Remember, Scott, like I said, if you are a person of influence, hopefully your people are going to leave your company one day and they're going to be better for having known you. And then they're going to be able to look back and say, wow, my influence now extends to these people. And because it extends there, I'm part of that because I'm still at this company or whatever. So integrity builds a leader's credibility, and it helps to make them somebody that others want to follow.
I'm sure you've got an example for us, Mo, right?
I do have an example. And this story comes from one of the top 5, which is The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. And so this book talks about a fictional company that's led by a lady named Catherine Peterson, who takes over as CEO during a really turbulent time. And if you want to feel awkward, read this book, because the way that she takes over this company, you're like, oh man. When I read the story, and I read it a lot, I read it probably at least once a year. I read through this book, and it always kind of like makes me cringe the things that they go through. But obviously that's why it's called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, because Lencioni really pulls you into the story. And I'm not a big story guy. Scott, I know you're a big fiction guy, but this story is, maybe that's why I don't like fiction, because I just feel like it's pulling me in too much. But that's probably some of my own demons, and I'll talk to somebody about that later. So anyway, back to the book. One of the first things that Peterson does is confront the lack of trust within the executive team, not the people who are working at the bottom levels, the executive team. Instead of ignoring the dysfunctions, she insists on addressing it head on And even when it's uncomfortable for everybody involved, she does it anyway. And that's what I love about it. And her integrity in dealing with the issue, rather than just sweeping it under the rug, ends up inspiring her team. And then they follow her. But it's not that easy. There's a lot of turmoil, a lot of stuff goes on. But over time, this honesty that she has and the commitment to doing the right thing, even when it's tough, ends up transforming the team and the whole culture that Peterson is now over.
Might be a great story then for those that are looking to try to be a little bit more transparent than if it's a little bit of an awkward story.
Absolutely.
So then how can our listeners apply kind of Peterson's approach to trust building in their own organizations or workplaces or lives?
In the 5 dysfunctions of a team, obviously Catherine she assumes the top, she assumes the CEO position, but everybody else on the team, and they talk about a few different people on the team, and each of them have a different role and they're in charge of different sections of the company, but all of them have their own journeys that they're on. And so you kind of go through all those journeys and you see where everybody's coming from, so that when they all kind of come back together and they talk, you're in everybody's head. And you see that every person has to be authentic in their own way, and they have to be transparent in their own way. And just like you said, some people are overly transparent and they're just out there, and you want to know what they know, they wear their heart on their sleeve. And there's some people that don't say a peep and you're trying to pull things out of them. There's some people that are right in the middle. But by the time you get to the end of this book, you're thinking a couple things. You're thinking, man, I want that kind of a team. But the second thought always just following that is, man, I don't really know if I want to put that kind of energy, because it's almost like dealing like at home, right? Like you go home every day and you can't get away from your family stuff, right? You got to feed the kid, you got to clean the house, you got to, spend time with your wife. You got to do all these things, right? And so you're almost entering into the same kind of relationship at work. Not to say that you are married to work or need to be by any means, but you do need to be committed, and you need to be committed to the people that are in the office with you. And so that's my question. Are you being transparent with your team to the level and at the level where you're at? Because you can only really, and we talk about this all the time, you can only control you. You can't control anybody else. And that's why here at Rising Tide, we always talk about the You Project. When I talk to Scott, I'm talking about the Scott Project. When I talk to Bailey, I'm talking about the Bailey Project. Because when my mentors and coaches talk to me, they're talking about the Mo Project. And so I need to learn how to be transparent within myself. I need to learn how to lead myself before I can lead others. And that's why leadership's so hard. Because if you don't first become authentic, you can only fake it so much. It takes a lot of energy to fake it, right? And so there are some times in life where you got to fake it, and you gotta, if you've ever, what's the one with Will Smith where he's on Wall Street? Pursuit of Happiness. Yeah. Like he had to fake it, right? Because he couldn't just say, well, I'm homeless. He had to act like he was doing like there's times, right, in life where we have to fake it till we make it, because we have to be strong for people, or maybe you're in a really tough situation. And if you've ever been told, man, you're the person who is keeping this family together, and you're inside, you're thinking, man, I'm just faking it right now. Or my company is in turmoil, but wow, you're doing great. And you're thinking to yourself, man, I'm glad you said that, because I was going to quit tomorrow. But for the most part, we need to become who we want others to subscribe to. I want to be authentic. I want my people, I want my friends to say, man, when I hang out with Mo, that's what I get. I get the real McCoy. That's the real deal. And so leaders out there, really the encouragement to you is to just be yourself and try to get better. And be transparent with your team, because when you're transparent with your team, people appreciate that. And it's going to make them want to be a part of what you're doing.
Like we need a part 2, transparency. This has been great. Just all these stories just really in books just highlight just the power and the true power of authenticity, and just what it can do in leadership and in the workplace. Oh, Mo, but before we head out, you got any final thoughts for us?
Yeah, just one. Authenticity is about aligning your actions and your values and consistently demonstrating integrity. When leaders embrace authenticity, they build trust, and that trust is the foundation of any successful team. So get out there, be more transparent, be more authentic with your people, and they're going to be able to know this person isn't just saying this stuff. They really subscribe to it and really want to be a better leader.
That's great. Well, Mo, like always, thank you so much for imparting your wisdom on us today, and thank you to all of our listeners for joining us on this episode. So we really explored how authentic leadership, just through consistency, transparency, and integrity, can just transform your journey and impact those you lead. If you found today's episode valuable, we'd love for you guys to rate, review, and subscribe. Your feedback helps us reach more leaders like you and continue to bring your insights to people and those insights that matter. Until next time, keep leading with purpose and stay true to your authentic self.